You didn't click this by accident. This is a warning you needed to hear. There are moments in life that don't feel random, moments that don't feel like coincidence, but like alignment, like something unseen, something higher, has quietly arranged events just so you would arrive here, at this exact second, hearing these exact words. And if you're feeling that right now, that strange pull, that quiet tension in your chest, that sense that this message is speaking directly to you, then you need to understand something very clearly. This is not just a video. This is a message. And not everyone was meant to hear it. Out of millions of people scrolling, searching, distracting themselves, you stopped here. Not by accident, not by chance, but because something deep within you recognized it. Because part of you already knows there is something you need to see. Something you've been missing. Something that's been trying to reach you, again and again in subtle ways. Through dreams you couldn't explain. Through feelings you couldn't shake. Through situations that felt too perfectly timed to ignore. You've been sensing it, haven't you? That something is shifting. That something is off. That something, or someone, is not what it seems. And here's where it becomes serious. Because this message is not just meant to awaken you. It's meant to warn you, not to scare you, not to create fear, but to protect you before something unfolds that you won't be able to undo. There are times when God whispers, and there are times when He sends a message louder, clearer, more urgent. Not because He wants to frighten you, but because He sees what you don't. He sees what's forming behind the scenes. He sees the intentions that haven't yet revealed themselves. He sees the paths crossing in your life, the people entering your space, the energy surrounding your journey. And right now, He is trying to get your attention. Because there is someone connected to this warning. A woman, not just any woman, but someone whose presence in your life, past, present, or very soon, carries a weight you haven't fully understood yet. At first, she may not seem significant. She may appear familiar, even comforting. There may be a sense of connection, of curiosity, even of trust. But something beneath the surface doesn't sit right. And if you're honest with yourself, you've already felt it. That small hesitation, that quiet voice inside you that said, "Pay attention." But maybe you ignored it. Maybe you brushed it off. Maybe you told yourself you were overthinking. Because that's what we do, don't we? We silence intuition when it doesn't make logical sense. We doubt the very signals that were sent to guide us. And that's exactly how people miss the signs. But you're not meant to miss this one. That's why you're here. Because this message found you before it was too late. Because God does not send warnings without purpose. He doesn't interrupt your path without reason. And He certainly doesn't allow you to feel this level of awareness, unless something truly matters. This isn't about fear. This is about discernment. Understanding that not every presence in your life is meant to stay. That not every connection is safe. That not every smile is genuine. And that sometimes the people who come closest to you are the ones you need to understand the most. But here's the deeper truth. This isn't just about her. It's about you. Because being chosen doesn't mean life becomes easier. It means you are called to see what others don't. To feel what others ignore. To recognize patterns, energies, and intentions that most people walk straight into without question. And that level of awareness comes with responsibility. It means you can't afford to be asleep. You can't afford to ignore the signs. You can't afford to pretend everything is fine, when deep down, you know something isn't. Because when you are chosen, you are also protected, guided, watched over in ways you may never fully understand. And sometimes, that protection comes in the form of a message like this. A moment that interrupts your normal routine. A voice that feels strangely personal. A feeling that says, "Listen carefully." Because what you're about to hear next is not something everyone is ready for. But you are. You were meant to be here. And there is a reason this message reached you now, not yesterday, not tomorrow, but right now. So don't scroll away. Don't ignore that feeling. Because what comes next may change the way you see someone. And it may protect you from something you never saw coming. Because someone is already closer than you think. Something about her never felt right, and you ignored it. Have you ever felt something, and then talked yourself out of it? Not because the feeling went away, but because you couldn't explain it. That quiet discomfort, that subtle tension in your chest, that unspoken thought that whispered, something isn't right here. This is where intuition begins, not as a loud voice, not as something dramatic or obvious, but as a feeling, a knowing without proof. Intuition doesn't shout, it doesn't argue, it doesn't try to convince you. It simply shows up softly and waits to see if you'll listen. And if you're a chosen one, this ability is even stronger. You don't just notice what people say, you feel what they mean. You don't just observe behavior, you sense energy. And sometimes that gift becomes uncomfortable, because it reveals things you wish weren't there, like with her. At first, nothing seemed wrong. She smiled the right way, said the right things, even showed interest in your life, your thoughts, your story. On the surface, everything looked normal, maybe even good, but beneath that surface, something didn't settle. Not in a dramatic way, not in a way you could point to and say, there it is. Just small things, subtle things, moments that didn't quite match the feeling they were supposed to give. Like the way her compliments felt slightly off, as if they carried something underneath them, not quite genuine, not quite clean. Or the way conversations with her left you feeling drained instead of understood. You couldn't explain why, you just knew you felt different after talking to her. Heavier, quieter, like your energy had shifted without your permission. And then there were the pauses, those strange, almost invisible moments where something in her expression changed. Just for a second. Too fast for most people to notice. But not for you, because you felt it. That flicker, that disconnect between what she showed and what was actually there. But instead of trusting that feeling, you questioned it. You told yourself, maybe I'm overthinking. Maybe I'm being too sensitive. Maybe she's just having a bad day, so you gave her the benefit of the doubt. Again, and again, and again, because that's what people with deep intuition often do. They don't lack awareness. They lack permission to trust themselves. You saw the signs, but you softened them, you minimized them. You tried to fit them into a version of reality that felt more comfortable. Because accepting the truth would mean creating distance, setting boundaries, admitting that not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay. And that's not easy. Especially when someone hasn't done anything obviously wrong. That's the hardest part about intuition. It doesn't always come with clear evidence. It comes with feeling. And we've been taught to doubt feelings, to prioritize logic, to wait for proof, to ignore anything that can't be explained. But intuition doesn't work that way. It sees the pattern before the picture is complete. It feels the shift before the truth is revealed. It catches the energy before the actions become visible. And in your case, it was trying to protect you. Trying to tell you that something about her presence didn't align with your peace. But instead of listening, you stayed. You continued the conversations. You ignored the exhaustion. You pushed past the discomfort. Until those small moments started to grow. The off-end comments became sharper. The subtle tension became more noticeable. The emotional drain became harder to ignore. And suddenly what once felt like, maybe nothing, started to feel like something real, something undeniable. And that's when it hits you. That realization, that quiet, heavy truth. I felt this from the beginning. And it's not regret that comes first. It's clarity. A deep understanding that your intuition was never wrong. Only your trust in it was. Because intuition doesn't fail you. It doesn't mislead you. It doesn't create problems that aren't there. It simply shows you what your eyes haven't caught up to yet. But here's where it becomes powerful, because this isn't about blaming yourself for ignoring it. This is about recognizing it now, understanding that every moment of discomfort you felt was valid, every hesitation was meaningful, every quiet inner voice was real. You weren't imagining things, you weren't being too sensitive, you were being aware. And awareness is not a weakness, it's a form of protection. The kind that doesn't come from the outside, but from within. So if you're feeling that same uneasiness again with her, or with anyone else, don't rush to silence it. Don't explain it away. Don't shrink it just to keep things comfortable. Sit with it. Listen to it. Because intuition doesn't need you to understand everything. It just needs you to pay attention. And the moment you start trusting it, is the moment everything begins to change. But that feeling wasn't random. God always sends signs, but not everyone pays attention. There are moments in life that feel too precise to ignore. Not loud, not dramatic, but quietly persistent. Like something is trying to get your attention, again and again, in different ways. And at first, you don't call it a sign. You call it coincidence. You brush it off. You move on. You tell yourself it's nothing, but then it happens again, and again, and again. That's how warnings from God often begin. Not as fear, not as force, but as repetition. Because when something is truly meant for you to see, it doesn't just appear once. It keeps showing up until you finally stop and notice. Maybe it started with a feeling. A moment where everything seemed normal on the outside, but inside something felt off. You couldn't explain it. Nothing obvious was wrong. But something in your spirit felt unsettled. And instead of listening, you kept going. Then came the patterns. Small, almost invisible at first. The same kind of situation repeating itself. The same type of conversation. The same emotional outcome. Different day, different moment, but somehow the feeling was familiar. Like you had already been there before. That's not random. That's a signal. Because God doesn't always speak in words. Sometimes He speaks in patterns. He allows you to experience something more than once, not to confuse you, but to reveal something you missed the first time. But when you don't fully understand it, you continue. You stay in the same cycle, and the signs become stronger. Maybe you started noticing strange coincidences, hearing the same message from different people, seeing the same words appear in different places, feeling drawn to certain thoughts that didn't seem to come from you. Moments that made you pause for just a second, but not long enough to truly reflect, because part of you felt it. Part of you recognized that something deeper was happening, but another part of you wasn't ready to face it yet, so you stayed in between, aware but uncertain, guided but not fully listening. And that's where many chosen ones find themselves. Not completely lost, but not fully aligned either. Because being guided doesn't mean you instantly understand everything. It means you're being shown pieces, little by little, and it's up to you to connect them. But here's the truth about God's warnings. They don't come to control you. They come to protect you. They don't come to confuse you. They come to wake you up. And sometimes they come quietly at first, because you're expected to recognize them. But if you don't, they grow louder, not in sound but in intensity. The feeling becomes stronger, the patterns become clearer, the discomfort becomes harder to ignore, until eventually you can't pretend you don't see it anymore. And that's where the chosen one was, right in that space, where things didn't make complete sense yet, but they didn't feel right either. Where the signs were there, but the meaning wasn't fully clear. Where something inside kept saying, pay attention, but the mind kept asking, to what? It's a confusing place. Because you're not dealing with facts. You're dealing with awareness. And awareness doesn't always come with explanations. Sometimes it just shows you that something is shifting. That something needs to be looked at differently. That something in your life is not aligned with where you're meant to go. But instead of stopping, you keep moving, because it's easier, because it's familiar, because facing the truth might require change. And change, even when it's necessary, can feel uncomfortable. So you wait, you delay, you hope things will become clearer on their own. But clarity doesn't come from waiting. It comes from paying attention, from being present in those moments that feel different, from honoring the signs instead of dismissing them. Because every repeated pattern is a message. Every strange coincidence is a nudge. Every moment that makes you pause is an invitation. An invitation to see what you've been overlooking. An invitation to understand what's been placed in front of you. An invitation to step into awareness instead of staying in confusion. And the truth is, you were never being left in the dark. You were being guided the entire time. Even in the moments you didn't understand. Even in the times you questioned everything. Even when you felt like nothing was clear. There was direction. There was purpose. There was protection. But it required something from you. Not perfection. Not instant understanding. Just attention. Just willingness. Just the courage to stop and say, "What is this trying to show me?" Because once you ask that question, everything begins to shift. The patterns start to make sense. The coincidences don't feel random anymore. The feelings you once ignored start to become your guide. And suddenly, what once felt confusing becomes clear, not all at once, but enough. Enough to take the next step. Enough to make a different choice. Enough to move in a direction that aligns with your peace. And that's how guidance works. Not by forcing you, but by leading you gently, persistently, patiently, until you're ready to see. So if things have been repeating in your life, if certain feelings won't go away, if moments keep happening that you can't fully explain, don't ignore them. Don't rush past them. Because those aren't interruptions, they're messages. And they've been trying to reach you for a reason. And one sign changed everything. Not everyone around you is meant to stay. Not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay. That's a truth most people don't realize until much later. Until after the confusion, after the emotional weight, after the quiet damage has already been done. Because at the beginning everything feels normal. Sometimes even perfect. People don't arrive with warnings written on them. They don't introduce themselves with their true intentions fully visible. They come as conversations, as connections, as comfort. They come in ways that feel familiar, almost meant to be. And that's what makes it so difficult to recognize when something isn't right. Because not every presence in your life is there to grow with you. Some are there to test you. Some are there to distract you. And some are simply not aligned with where you're being called to go. But they don't show that immediately. They reveal it slowly, in pieces, in moments you almost miss. And if you're not paying attention, you can mistake proximity for purpose. You can believe that just because someone is close to you, they belong there. But closeness doesn't always mean alignment. And attention doesn't always mean care. That's where things begin to shift. Not in a dramatic way, but in subtle ways that are easy to ignore, like conversations that feel slightly off, even when the words sound right. Or moments where you feel like you're being observed more than understood. A strange imbalance where you're open, but something about them remains unclear. Not hidden in an obvious way, just not fully there. And then there's the energy, that quiet feeling you can't explain. The one that doesn't match the situation. You're in a calm environment, but you don't feel at peace. You're having a normal interaction, but something inside you tightens. That's not random. That's awareness trying to speak. But most people don't listen to that. Because it doesn't come with evidence. It doesn't come with clear reasons or logical explanations. So it gets dismissed, explained away, silenced. Especially when the person in front of you hasn't done anything wrong. And that's what makes this kind of situation so complex. Because you're not dealing with obvious harm. You're dealing with subtle misalignment. the kind that doesn't break things instantly, but slowly shifts them over time. And that's where her presence becomes harder to ignore. Not because she's loud, not because she's openly negative, but because something about her doesn't fully settle. It's in the way she listens, but doesn't really reveal, the way she asks but rarely answers, the way she's present but never completely there. There's a distance, not physical but energetic, and you feel it, even if you can't define it, even if you've tried to ignore it, even if part of you doesn't want to believe it. Because believing it would change everything. It would mean accepting that not everyone who comes into your life is sent to support you. That some connections are not meant to deepen. That some people are not meant to walk with you, no matter how natural it may seem at first. And that's a difficult realization. Because as humans, we want to see the good. We want to believe in intention. We want to trust that if something feels closer, it must be real. But not everything that feels close is pure. And not everything that appears aligned truly is. Sometimes, people enter your life carrying intentions you won't fully understand right away. Not always harmful in an obvious sense, but not entirely clean either, and that creates a tension, a quiet imbalance that grows over time. You may notice it in how you feel after being around them. Not necessarily hurt, just off. Like something has shifted inside you. Like your energy has been pulled in a direction you didn't choose. And then you start to question yourself. Why do I feel like this? What is it about this situation that doesn't sit right? But instead of exploring those questions, you push them away, because nothing on the surface justifies them. And that's where most people lose clarity. They wait for something obvious, something undeniable. Something they can point to and say, that's the reason. But by the time it becomes that clear, the impact has already begun. And that's why awareness matters. Because not everyone who enters your life is meant to grow with you. Some are only meant to pass through, to reveal something, to challenge your perception, to test whether you can trust what you feel, even when it doesn't make sense yet. And maybe that's what this is. Not a situation you're meant to fully understand right now, but one you're meant to notice, to observe without rushing to conclusions, to feel without silencing it, because there is something about her presence that carries weight, not heavy in a visible way, but enough to create a shift, enough to make you pause, enough to make you question even if only for a moment, and those moments matter, because they're not random, they're signals. Small, quiet signals that ask for your attention, not your fear, not your reaction, just your awareness. Because the truth doesn't always arrive all at once. Sometimes it unfolds slowly, through feelings, through patterns, through subtle changes you can't ignore forever. And if you're paying attention, you'll start to see it. Not clearly at first, but enough to know that not every presence is meant to stay. And not every connection is meant to grow, and her intentions were never what they seemed. You started noticing small changes, things didn't feel the same anymore. At first it's barely noticeable, nothing dramatic happens, no clear moment where everything changes, just a shift, so subtle you almost miss it. But if you're paying attention, not just to what's happening around you, but to what's happening within you, you start to feel it. Something isn't the same. The energy feels different, not in a way you can explain, but in a way you can't ignore forever. It starts with your mood. You wake up feeling slightly heavier than usual. Not sad, not tired, just off. Like something is sitting in the background of your mind, quietly taking up space. And you can't quite identify where it's coming from, so you move through your day like normal. You talk to the same people. You do the same things, but the feeling lingers. Then you notice something else. Your thoughts have changed. You're overthinking small things that never used to bother you. Replaying conversations, questioning tones, analyzing words that once felt simple and clear. Especially the ones involving her. It's not obvious at first. Just a slight hesitation when you think about something she said. A moment where you pause and ask yourself, what did she mean by that? And instead of brushing it off like before, you sit with it a little longer, because something about it doesn't settle the way it used to. And then comes the emotional confusion. One moment everything feels fine, the next you feel distant, disconnected, not just from her, but from yourself. Like your emotions are being pulled in different directions without your permission. You try to make sense of it. Maybe I'm just stressed. Maybe I'm overthinking again. Maybe it's nothing. But the pattern continues. And that's when it becomes harder to ignore, because it's not just a feeling anymore. It's a shift in your behavior. You start responding differently. You hold back more than you used to. You think twice before sharing something personal. You hesitate before engaging the way you once did so freely. Not out of fear, but out of instinct. Like something inside you is quietly saying, be careful. Even if you don't fully understand why. And then there are the moments when you're around her. Those are the ones that reveal the most. Because your body reacts before your mind can explain. There's a tension. A subtle tightness in your chest, a slight discomfort in your silence. Conversations that once felt easy now feel like effort. Not forced, just unnatural. Like you're trying to match an energy that doesn't quite align with yours anymore. And what confuses you the most is that nothing on the surface has changed enough to justify how you feel. She still speaks the same way, acts the same way, shows up the same way. But something underneath it all is different, or maybe it always was, and you're just now starting to see it. That's the moment everything begins to shift, not outside of you, but inside, because awareness doesn't arrive loudly. It unfolds slowly, piece by piece, until the feeling you once ignored becomes something you can't unfeel, and you start connecting the dots. The way you feel after certain conversations, the way your energy drops without a clear reason, the way your mind becomes restless when everything should feel calm. It's not random. It's not imagined. It's a response. And once you realize that, you can't go back to not noticing. That's when the clarity begins. Not fully, not all at once, but enough to make you pause. Enough to make you observe instead of assuming. You begin to watch more closely. Not in a suspicious way, but in an aware way. You notice how often you feel drained instead of uplifted. How your peace feels slightly disturbed after interactions that should feel neutral or even positive. You notice the imbalance. The quiet give and take that doesn't feel equal. The way your energy seems to be affected more than it should, and instead of ignoring it this time, you acknowledge it. Even if you don't fully understand it yet. Because something inside you has shifted. You're no longer just experiencing the situation. You're seeing it, feeling it, recognizing it, and that changes everything. Because once awareness steps in, confusion starts to lose its power. You may not have all the answers. You may not fully understand what's causing the shift. But you know one thing for certain. Something is off. And for the first time, you're not trying to silence that truth. You're allowing it to exist, to guide you, to show you what your mind hasn't fully processed yet. Because that's how realization begins. Not with a loud conclusion, but with a quiet acceptance. That the way you feel matters. That the shifts you're experiencing are real. And that maybe, just maybe, they're trying to tell you something you're finally ready to hear. That's when the truth slowly began to reveal itself. This is the moment most people ignore, but you can't. Listen carefully. Not with fear, but with awareness. Because what you've been feeling, what you've been noticing, what you've been quietly questioning, it matters more than you think. This is where everything becomes clear. Not perfectly clear, not all at once, but clear enough for you to make a decision. A decision to either trust yourself or ignore what you already know. And right now, you don't need more proof. You don't need more signs. You don't need something dramatic to happen to confirm what your intuition has already been showing you. Because the truth is, you've been receiving the message for a while now, through feelings, through patterns, through subtle shifts you couldn't fully explain, and now it's time to stop dismissing them. This is your warning, not to scare you, but to guide you, to protect you before something becomes heavier than it needs to be. Because when something feels off repeatedly, it's not random. When your energy shifts around certain people, it's not imagination. When your inner voice keeps whispering, pay attention. It's not overthinking, it's awareness. And awareness is one of the strongest forms of protection you have, but only if you choose to trust it. That's where most people hesitate. They feel it, but they question it. They notice it, but they explain it away. They sense something isn't right, but they wait for something undeniable before they act. And by then, they've already allowed too much. Too much access, too much influence, too much energy to be taken without realizing it. Don't let that be your path. You don't need to wait until something breaks to realize it was never aligned. You don't need to be hurt to justify creating distance. You don't need a clear reason to protect your peace. If something feels wrong, that is enough. If your energy feels affected, that is enough. If your mind keeps returning to the same quiet concern, that is enough. Because intuition doesn't work on your timeline. It works ahead of it. It sees before you see. It feels before you understand. And if you ignore it long enough, it doesn't disappear. It just gets louder. Not in sound, but in consequence. That's why this moment matters. Because you're still in a place where you can choose differently. You can step back. You can observe. You can protect what you've been giving away too freely. Your time, your attention, your emotional energy. These things are not small. They are not unlimited. And not everyone deserves access to them, no matter how normal things may appear on the surface. No matter how familiar someone may feel. No matter how much you've already invested. You are allowed to pause. You are allowed to reassess. You are allowed to say, something doesn't feel right, and I'm going to listen to that. That is not weakness. That is strength. Because protecting your energy is not about pushing people away. It's about understanding who should be closer and who should not. And sometimes, the hardest part is accepting that someone doesn't belong where you placed them. Not because they are openly harmful, but because they are not aligned. And misalignment over time creates imbalance. And imbalance over time affects everything. Your thoughts, your emotions, your clarity. So don't ignore the early signs. Don't wait for things to become obvious, because by then the cost is higher. Instead, stay aware, stay present. Pay attention to how you feel, not just what you see. Notice the patterns, not just the moments. Trust the quiet signals, not just the loud ones. Because the quiet ones come first for a reason. They are your chance to move with clarity, instead of reacting later with confusion. And understand this. You are not being shown these things by accident. You are not feeling this way for no reason. This message found you because you are ready to hear it. Ready to see differently. Ready to choose differently, not out of fear, but out of awareness, out of self-respect, out of a deeper understanding that your peace matters more than keeping something that doesn't feel right. So don't ignore what you've been feeling. Don't silence what keeps returning. Don't doubt yourself just because you can't explain everything yet. You don't need all the answers. You just need to trust what you already know, and take one step in the direction that protects you. Because that's how guidance works. Not by forcing you, but by showing you gently, repeatedly, until you decide to listen. And now you've heard it, so stay alert, stay grounded, and most importantly, trust yourself. Because the next move decides everything. If you're still watching this, the message was meant for you. Take a moment and just breathe. Not because everything is suddenly easy, but because something inside you is becoming clear. You've felt it throughout this message, haven't you? that quiet shift. That moment where confusion started turning into understanding, where doubt started turning into awareness. And now you're here, not at the beginning, but at a point of realization, a place where you can no longer say, I didn't know. Because now you do. You see it differently. You feel it more clearly. You understand that what you've been experiencing wasn't random, wasn't imagined, wasn't something to ignore. It was guidance. And that changes everything. Because once you recognize that you are being guided, you stop moving through life blindly. You stop second-guessing every feeling. You stop dismissing your own inner voice. And you begin to trust something deeper, something stronger, something that has been with you the entire time. Your awareness, your intuition, your connection to something greater than what you can see. That's what sets you apart. That's what makes you different. Because being chosen isn't about being perfect. It's not about having all the answers. It's not about never feeling confused or uncertain. Being chosen means you are aware. It means you are sensitive to what others overlook. It means you are able to feel truth, even when it hasn't fully revealed itself yet. And yes, that can feel heavy at times. Because you see things earlier. You feel things deeper. You recognize shifts before they become obvious. But that's not a burden. That's protection. That's guidance. That's a gift. Even if it doesn't always feel like one in the moment. Because everything you've felt, every hesitation, every moment of discomfort, it was never there to harm you. It was there to help you, to slow you down, to make you pause, to make you question what didn't align, and most importantly, to help you choose differently. That's where your power is, not in controlling everything around you, but in choosing how you respond to what you feel, in choosing to listen instead of ignore, in choosing to step back instead of staying in something that doesn't feel right, in choosing yourself even when it's difficult. And now you're at that point, where the choice becomes real, where you stop waiting for more signs, and start trusting the ones you've already received, because you don't need more confirmation. You don't need something louder. You don't need something clearer. You already have enough. Enough awareness. Enough understanding. Enough truth within you to move forward differently. And that's what matters. Because clarity doesn't always come as a perfect answer. Sometimes it comes as a quiet knowing. A deep sense that says, I see it now. Even if you can't explain every detail. Even if you don't fully understand everything yet. That knowing is enough. And the more you trust it, the stronger it becomes. The clearer it becomes. The more it guides you toward what is right for you, and away from what is not. So don't shrink back into doubt. Don't return to ignoring what you've already felt. Don't convince yourself that you need to go through more, just to be sure. You don't. You're already aware, and awareness is where everything begins. Because when you are aware, you are protected. Not from every challenge, not from every difficult moment, but from walking blindly into things that were never meant for you. From staying too long in places that drain you, from giving your energy to situations that don't deserve it. That's what this message has been about. Not fear, not suspicion, but clarity. The kind of clarity that allows you to move forward with strength, with confidence, with a deeper trust in yourself. Because at the end of the day, you are not lost. You were never lost. You were learning, you were observing. You were being shown what you needed to see step by step. And now, you're ready. Ready to stand in your awareness. Ready to trust your instincts. Ready to protect your peace without guilt. Ready to move forward without carrying confusion with you. And that's powerful, because not everyone reaches this point. Not everyone listens. Not everyone recognizes when something deeper is guiding them. But you did. You're here. And that means something. So as you move forward from this moment, don't forget what you've felt. Don't forget what you've realized. Don't forget that quiet voice within you that has been guiding you all along, because it will continue to guide you, if you let it. Stay aware, stay grounded, stay connected to that inner knowing, because you are not walking this path alone. You are guided, you are protected, and most importantly, you are chosen.